if they don't believe George and Cindy, if the jury in the murder case doesn't believe George and Cindy, how does that hurt Casey, rather?
It bolsters the prosecution's circumstantial evidence that's consistent with Casey being the killer of this child. And it just makes it look as though the parents are acting out in desperation to try to name names or testify in such a manner that that protects their daughter in the face of the evidence against her.
And we're bleeding into the other story, but you brought up an interesting point. If they look like they're too desperate to defend her, and there's not a sense of... If they look like they're too desperate to defend her, then it looks like they have something to defend her against. Is that right?
It makes them look as though there's something to hide. It makes it look as though, the case against her is compelling. We're like a rattlesnake in a corner. We're going to lash out at anybody and everything in order to protect our daughter.
But in a bad way for Casey? Because, I mean, you would expect
in
parents...
a bad way for
and
Casey.
And why is that?
Because they have made statements prior to the statements that they're now making that are inconsistent. And it makes it look as though they're desperately trying to change their testimony in order to protect their daughter.
And by naming names... by naming Jessie Grund as somebody who they think might have something to do with this, her ex-fiance, by naming even as Zenaida Gonzalez. But we already know a lot about that situation. But here they are at a Zenaida Gonzalez defamation lawsuit, now potentially defaming her ex-fiance, who's not been charged, and there's no evidence pointing to him. They're naming his name, and they have in the past, as having something to do with this. And by default, they actually are naming her friend Amy Huizenga, because they say that they believe there's a Zanny now, and that Zanny could be Jessie Grund or could be Amy Huizenga. That's what Cindy has said. So she's basically naming more names of innocent people that she's blaming for kidnapping Kaylee and obviously killing her. What about that? I mean, what does that do to a jury when they hear that the parents are bringing innocent people's names into this mix?
It looks like acts of desperation that these people will say and do and drag anybody down that they have to in order to advance their daughter's case.
And does that make them likable or unlikable?
That makes them less than sympathetic. It makes them unlikable. The opinion will shift from that of a grieving grandparent and a loving mother and father to that of a more sinister nature, that they're trying to protect the killer of this child who happens to be their daughter.
And when a jury, when they're naming other names of innocent people like this, when you say it makes them not less likable and less sympathetic, how does that turn against them and Casey in a juror's mind? In other words, does a juror listen to this and say, I can't believe they're dragging innocent people's names into this? What does that do to a juror's mind about all of them?
I think that it says to a juror that the fruit has not fallen far from the tree. The cornerstone of the defense in this case has been that she has named an innocent person that she has turned the child over to, and that innocent person is the one that did this deed, even though the evidence points to her. That mantra is being picked up now by the parents, and out of a sense of desperation, the parents have said, let's start naming innocent people that could possibly be involved in this case. And a jury's going to look at that and say, quite frankly, like mother, like daughter, like father, like daughter. The fruit has not fallen far from the tree. This is where she gets her attitude and her ability to lie with impunity and to hurt anyone who is innocent in order to advance her own cause.
And one more question about that. Could that also make at least one juror sympathize with Casey? If they look at her parents and say, my God, her parents are like this, no wonder she's like this, it's not her fault, it's theirs. Is that a possibility?
That may be a possibility when it comes to a sentence imposed, but it's not going to sway a juror to say, oh, I can forgive her for killing this child because she was the product of this type of background. No, that is not going to in any way benefit the defense in this case, this type of behavior or this type of lashing out and dragging in innocent people to try to deflect away from the guilt of Casey.